Shavua Tov, this is Leora Balinsky, and this message is a part of the Amudim Teshuva tape series. So we left off yesterday with the seventh parak of Hilchot Teshuva, which discussed what it means to be a Baal Teshuva, what Baalat Teshuva, and everything that comes with that, and how being a Baal Teshuva and dying a Baal Teshuva will, the first halacha in the seventh parak tells us that will that will cause us to merit the world to come. And so now in the eighth parak, the theme is Olam Haba. The Olam Haba that is the consequence or the reward that tzaddikim receive. And so I'm just going to do a little summary of the halachot here that discuss Olam Haba, and then give a little bit of a thought at the end. So halacha aleph essentially tells us that the end game is Olam Haba of everything. That is the good that tzaddikim will receive, is something not in this world but in the next world. And conversely, the crux of the punishment that Rishayim receive is not getting Olam Haba. Getting karet in Olam Hazeh, and getting karet in Olam Haba, meaning getting cut off from Olam Haba, and that is the crux of their punishment. And then in halacha bet, the Rambam describes what happens in Olam Haba, and we're going to return to this. The Rambam explains that no one has a body, and we are like angels in that respect, and there's no eating, no drinking, anything of the things that we need to do as people with bodies, we don't do, whether it's sitting, standing, sleep, sadness, happiness, etc. And this is all based off of a Gemara in Masachet Brachot, that says that tzaddikim sit and enjoy the radiance of the Shekhinah, and that they don't eat, they don't drink, but rather they sit and enjoy the radiance of the Shekhinah. So Rambam explains that the language of tzaddikim sitting, that's metaphorical language. It doesn't mean that they literally sit. And also, and additionally, the Gemara says that they have crowns on their heads and they enjoy the radiance of the Shekhinah. Rambam explains, no, that crown is also metaphorical. And really what it means to delight in the radiance of the Shekhinah, to enjoy the radiance of the Shekhinah, the Ziv HaShekhinah, what that means is to comprehend God. And so Olam Haba, in its essence, is about comprehending God and being close to God. And that is what constitutes Olam Haba. In Halacha Gimel, the Rambam just explains that when we use the word nefesh for soul, it doesn't mean a soul that's like contingent on the body and attached to the body, but rather the form of the soul, which is not contingent, not dependent on the body. And in Halacha Daled, the Rambam just goes over the many names there are for Olam Haba, which are all metaphorical names. He says, Nikru'ula derech mashal, so such as Har Hashem, the mountain of God, Mekom Kodsho, the holy place, Derech HaKodesh, the holy path, Chatzrot Hashem, the courtyards of God, Noam Hashem, pleasantness of God, Ohel Hashem, tent of God, Heichal Hashem, the place of God, palace of God, Beit Hashem, Beit Hashem, the house of God, Shar Hashem, gate of God, and additionally, Chazal refer to the goodness that tzaddikim received in Olam Haba as a Suda. But again, that is metaphorical, and we generally call it Olam Haba. And then in Halacha Hey, we learn again that karet is really, really bad. It's hanekama she'ein nekama gdola mimena. It's retribution beyond which there is no greater retribution or revenge. And you don't receive, because you don't receive Olam Haba. There's no option for it. Your soul is just obliterated. And then in Halacha Vav, we move on to say that we should not think of Olam Haba as just about receiving material rewards or whatsoever as receiving material rewards. That is a flawed way of thinking about it. And people who think about that are completely wrong, because when we think about material rewards, those are just the manifestations or the products of the bodily desires that we have that stem from the bodily needs that we have. And because in Olam Haba we don't have bodies, none of those rewards will be relevant. It doesn't make any sense. But it's hard for us to, the Rambam acknowledges that it's difficult for us to comprehend anything beyond that. He says, that the only thing that we know in this world is things that are good to our body, bodily pleasures, things that feel good to us, and those bodily pleasures are the only thing that we know. It's our only terms for understanding what we want. Anything that is good. We can't, in our state, understand what Olam Haba is outside of that. And the only way we can understand it is derech mashal, is by way of metaphor. And we had examples of those metaphors in terms of the names of Olam Haba and Halacha Daled. In Halacha Zayin, the Rambam explains that further that we cannot understand Olam Haba. Not only that we can't, but nobody can and nobody has. Because it's impossible to understand unless you are experiencing it. And he quotes a pasuk from Yeshayahu that says, "Ayin lo ra'ata Elokim zulatcha ya'aseh l'macha kelo." That no eye has seen it except for you, and you, God will make it for those who trust in Him. And Rambam understands that this is referring to Olam Haba, that you can only see it once you're there, and there's no apprehending it beforehand whatsoever. And Hashem creates it for those who are mechakim lo, who wait for Him and who trust in Him. And then we conclude the parak with halacha chet, where the Rambam says that the world to come, Olam Haba, does not mean that it doesn't exist now. It doesn't mean that the world has to be destroyed now in order for the next one to exist afterwards, but rather they are coexisting worlds. And this Olam Haba just comes to us, Ve'ezrat Hashem we be zocha, after this bodily world. But they are already coexisting realms. So that is a summary of the parak. And now I want to return to halacha bet, where, just to refresh our memories, the Rambam discusses that we have that in Olam Haba we do not have a body or any of the desires of the body. So he says, "Ha'olam haba in bo guf ugvia ela nefashot tzadikim belvad below guf kamal chesharet." That in the world to come we don't have bodies. It is only the souls of tzaddikim without bodies who and resembling angels. And when I think what the Rambam elaborates here, he elaborates that we don't have eating, drinking, anything that humans need, etc. Anything that bodies need, including, again, sitting, standing, sleep, death, sadness, laughter, all of that. That Olam Haba is not like that. And I said Yom Kippur just now because I think that we can understand the Rambam to be very relevant for what Yom Kippur is about. There is the idea that the Inuim, that the afflictions that we do on Yom Kippur are not actually about really afflicting ourselves or any type of suffering, or even about making ourselves poor, which is one understanding of Inuim is from the Lashon of Ani, to make ourselves poor, but rather it's in order to get us into a different state. And so there is a medrash in Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer that states the common idea, one of the common understandings that I think is very relevant to the Rambam here, which is that on Yom Kippur we are striving to be like angels. And I think we can understand the Rambam as taking us to an extra level there. It's not just about being like angels, but it's about being like angels in the sense of we are experiencing a taste of Olam Haba. We are experiencing essentially Me'ein Olam Haba, which is very different than when we talk about Me'ein Olam Haba on Shabbos, which we mark by like a lot of eating, drinking, ta'anug in general, dafka enjoyment of bodily pleasures. But here, it's a different taste of Olam Haba. We're trying to do it not al derech mashal, not only according to metaphors necessarily, but as almost ki'ilu kiviyachol, experiencing a different state of being, which is not one where we are reliant on any of our bodily needs, and we are not seeking bodily pleasures, but rather a state where we are just able to enjoy Hashem's presence and feel the closeness with Hashem. And I think that relates to the Mishnah in Masechet Tani that says that there weren't days joyful like Tu B'Av and Yom Kippur. It's a day of happiness and joy because we feel that closeness. And so in order to do that, we go through the motions as if we are angels. But the fact of the matter is that we might go through those motions, but we know that on Yom Kippur, at least I am not on the level where I am able to completely disconnect and dissociate from my bodily needs. I still feel hungry, and I still feel thirsty. Nowadays, we have really comfortable shoes, but people who didn't probably missed their leather shoes. If you're not wearing Crocs or something like that, I wear Chacos, I feel great. So my feet don't necessarily hurt, but I'm really hungry and I'm really thirsty, and sometimes that is something that is distracting. And I think that the idea there can be understood as the fact that we're still in this world, and there's still work for us to do in this world, in our bodies, and that's what Hashem wants from us. We are not at that level yet. We're not ready yet for Olam Haba, and thank God, because we also want to live here now. And we be zochet to Olam Haba. But right now we still have reminders that we are in our physical bodies, and we are trying to connect to Hashem as we are in our physical bodies, in the hope that one day we will merit Olam Haba. So I just daven for all of us that we may be zocha to feel that closeness tomorrow night, and may we experience it as a taste of the unfathomable ultimate closeness that we, please God, will be zocha to experience in Olam Haba. Gemar Chatima Tova.